In this tutorial, we're going to install MySQL server and then create a user to use in this database, and then install phpMyAdmin. The stack we're going to use here is LAMP. The LAMP stands for Linux, Apache, MySQL, and PHP. Now I'm using AlmaLinux on VirtualBox. Now I'm going to check for network. Because this image I'm using right now is already installed the web server, the Apache web server. Let's check here. I run the command systemctl status httpd. D stand for daemon. It's like the software running on the background. And now I check for localhost if it runs perfectly fine. And if you didn't install the httpd service, then you just use this command to run it, to install it in your device. And now I'm gonna run some quick update, some kind of package on my system. And now I'll check for the PHP version if it is not already installed in my device. And you can see that there's no any version found on this device, so I'm gonna install it. There's many ways to install the PHP. By the default one, your repository or the default AlmaLinux has like the upstream as the default repository. It only supports the stable version. So if you want some different version that not support this repository, you could like install another repository from the third party like Rami to install some like latest version of your PHP. But now I'm gonna use the default one. What command I'm using right now is I'm checking for the DNF module list, a list for PHP, and then I'm going to see the PHP that available on my repository that I can like install it. So I'm gonna reset and enable the version I want, and then install the PHP. You could see that the PHP version 8.0 is already enabled here. And then I'm gonna restore the HTTP service to make the PHP work. The next step is install MySQL server. After finish install, and then start the service and enable the service, and then check for the status. The next step is I'm gonna use the command script to config MySQL. After you install, you have to do some config here. By default, you have to config it manually on the configuration file, but with this command, you can config it quickly with 5 configuration questions. The first one is going to ask you to enter the root password, and you just enter yes for the next 4 config here. And then after finish configuration, you could log in with your root password. The next step is create the user for a specific privilege. First, you have to create the user and set the passwords for it. And the next step is create the database for that user. And then you grant the privilege on that database for a specific user you created. And after provide any grants, you have to flush privilege. Because after grant any privilege, all those grants are not applying to the server. It's only like stored on the cache of the server, not applying on the server directly. And now I log into this new user to check if this user have the right privilege. And the next step, I'm gonna install the README repository. I'm using command dnf install and the link of that file. Why do we need README repository on the first place? Like I said, the README repository supports many other packages that the default repository does not have. Because the way to install the phpMyAdmin, it has two ways to install. By the first one is manual install. It's pretty complex and hard to install if you don't have any experiences to install this. The second one is using the package. But the default repository on this AlmaLinux doesn't support the phpMyAdmin package, so we need to install the README repository in order to install that package. By using the command enable repo equal README and the phpMyAdmin, that you could install the phpMyAdmin by package. After finish install phpMyAdmin, I'm gonna do some little config here by going to the config file on phpMyAdmin. What does this require or granted here do? It's gonna allow or any other IP to access this phpMyAdmin remotely. Next, we're gonna check if the phpMyAdmin on the browser works perfectly fine. Log in with the user we created and see now we have the right privilege on this user.